So after playing Sonic Mania about 3 or 4 times, I've finally gotten back into that mood of just wanting to play Sonic games. Now, I grew up playing Sonic games. Sonic 2 was actually my first game. My dad bought a Sega Genesis back in 1991, I think, sometime in that early period there. And it was just sitting in the cabinet underneath the TV, and my little 3-year-old self had no idea what it was. I would always ask. Finally, he took it out and introduced me to Sonic 2, and I actually, by the time I was about 4 years old, I actually beat the game by myself. That includes the Death Egg robot. Oh man, that even impressed my dad, who had a little bit of trouble getting past all of that. But classic Sonic, and really Sonic the Hedgehog in general, was my main game series growing up. I was always a Sonic fan growing up. Now, once it reached around like the 2006 era, I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I did play through Sonic Unleashed. I enjoyed the heck out of that. Sonic Colors, played through that. Generations, played through that. But I didn't have the same excitement that I had when I was a kid. Now, that partially has to do with the fact that when you're a kid, you get more focused on things, you get more excited by things, your imagination runs wild. Like, if the GameCube took track of how many hours you played, and the Dreamcast too, because I split between the Dreamcast and the GameCube growing up, I would probably have several thousand hours just on Sonic Adventure 2 alone, and probably a little bit less on Sonic Adventure 1. Anyways, I love these games very much, and I'm so glad to see Sonic return to glory with Sonic Mania. And you know what? Yes, Sonic Forces is a little bit cookie cutter, but I have a feeling that game's going to be pretty decent too, and I'm actually looking forward to it. And I'll be getting it on PC. But I just have one thing about the Sonic series that's been kind of bothering me lately. If you've noticed, Green Hill Zone seems to be a pretty popular destination for Sonic to run through. I mean, when Green Hill Zone was first shown off in the early 90s, it pretty much did for Sonic what World 1-1 did for Mario. If you just explored around and screwed around in Green Hill Zone, you could figure out exactly how to use Sonic's movement and physics and the level design to your advantage. I mean, there were certain parts of the level that you couldn't get to by just, running from left to right to jumping. You would have to go ahead in the level, roll down the hill, and then when you were at a certain part on a ramp, you would have to jump backwards and then land on top there, and you'd be rewarded with an extra life and rings. I mean, Green Hill Zone was just masterfully designed, and it was an amazing first level for Sonic, and I'd say it's just as well designed as World 1-1 in Mario, and we already know how meticulously well put together that level was, that basically each little step in that level kind of taught you how to play the 2D Mario games. So Green Hill Zone, I'm by no means trashing it. It's a really good level, and honestly, for the first 10 years of Sonic's life, we didn't really see it return. We did see it return in Sonic Drift, but after that point, we didn't really see classic levels return other than maybe in small spin-off games. But that changed in Sonic Adventure 2. If you got all A ranks on all 180 emblems, you would unlock Green Hill Zone, a 3D version of Green Hill Zone. Now, when I first unlocked this back in, I don't know how old I was, maybe 9 years old, something like that. Man, it took me so long to unlock that, but when I first unlocked that, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was so cool seeing a 3D version of Green Hill Zone, and in my opinion, to this day, this is still the most authentic 3D version of Green Hill Zone we've ever gotten. It pretty much took the layout of Act 1 of Green Hill Zone and turned it into 3D. It's not something like Generations where it's a remixed level with the same theme. So that was really cool. And then again, for the longest time, we didn't exactly see Green Hill Zone again, and then Sonic Generations came along, and so we got Green Hill Zone in Sonic Generations, and we got it for Classic Sonic and Modern Sonic, and we also got Green Hill Zone in the handheld version of Sonic Generations, although that Green Hill Zone was more based on the Game Gear version, as you could tell by the background. It was a little different. So yeah, that one kind of made sense. Sonic Generations was supposed to be a game celebrating the history of Sonic, and you couldn't possibly have a game like that without, bringing back the first level that basically introduced everybody to the game. However, roll around when Sonic Mania was announced, and we saw that Green Hill Zone was being brought back in it. Now, Sonic Mania does an excellent job with the old levels. Basically, Act 1 kind of plays it straight. You'll see different layouts, of course, but the theme is mostly the same. It's very familiar. But then when you move to Act 2, you get almost a completely different level. Green Hill Zone just transforms in that. Really, all the levels do. For example, Chemical Plant, it gets played straight, kind of like how it was in Sonic 2. And then you play Act 2, and suddenly you get these syringes that turn the goop bouncier, and you go up these double helix things that move you into there, and you have these platforms on the wall and ceiling that you can stick to move through. I mean, a lot of the remixing gets done in Act 2, so, I mean, the way Green Hill Zone was handled in Sonic Mania was really good. However, did it really have to be Green Hill Zone? I mean, yes, I can see that the developers, the fan developers of Sonic Mania probably wanted to take their own spin on the level themselves, but at this point we had already gotten Green Hill Zone in the original game, of course, brought back in Sonic Drift and Sonic Battle as like side levels, brought back in its 3D form for the first time in Sonic Adventure 2, and then brought back in Generations. I mean, there's other Sonic, like, level 1s to go from. What about Sonic? Sonic 2 was bundled with Genesis consoles for the longest time, so Emerald Hill Zone was many people's first introduction to the series. So why haven't we seen Emerald Hill return? I mean, this level is just as iconic as Green Hill Zone, or maybe not quite as much, but it's easily a very iconic level, so it would have been really cool to see Emerald Hill return instead of Green Hill, because we had already gotten it, again, from the original games, all the spin-offs, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Generations twice, because the 3DS version was a different version of the game, essentially. So it would have been nice to see Emerald Hill, and then we saw Sonic Forces shown off. It wasn't really called Sonic Forces at the time, and we didn't even really see gameplay, but once we started seeing gameplay of Sonic Forces, we saw that once again, Green Hill Zone is being brought back in Sonic Forces. I mean, do we really need that? I get it. In the Sonic lore, Green Hill Zone takes place on Sonic's home island where he lives, if you're talking about the classic Sonic lore. So it makes sense that he'd be in Green Hill Zone more than Emerald Hill, which is a completely different island. And let's not even get started on Angel Island Zone, which is on Angel Island, which is an entirely different area. I don't know. I feel like the Green Hill Zone being brought back several times is just trying to tickle people's nostalgia bone. I mean, there's other levels we could easily use for that. I mean, we have Palm Tree Panic, which I guess is pretty much just a Green Hill ripoff, but we have Palm Tree Panic, we have Emerald Hill, we have lots of those levels to choose from that we could bring back, so honestly, I was planning on originally making this more of a detailed video where I kind of make good points, but it really just turned into a ramble, because I was able to get this all just in one go without any script or anything. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I'm still looking forward to Sonic Forces. I still heavily enjoyed Mania, and I'm not really going to complain about the inclusion of Green Hill Zone and all of these. I mean, let's be fair. Let's compare, like, Sonic Mania to the new Super Mario Bros. Games, where you basically have the same exact, you know, grassland, desert, all those levels, those level themes brought back 1,000 times as multiple different levels. So I guess it's not as bad as just bringing a few levels back, or I just totally lost my train of thought there. I apologize. I'm not even going to take that out. But seriously, just for the future of Sonic games, I hope that if they're going to bring back old levels for whatever reason, maybe give Emerald Hill some love, and give Green Hill Zone the retirement it deserves, and we can see Green Hill Zone maybe like 10 years, 20 years from now, or something like that, in like a future game, because I think we've had enough. We've seen it in all sorts of different forms. We've seen it in its original 2D form multiple times with different ideas from that. We've seen it in kind of a Sonic Rush style game. We've seen it... Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention when we were talking about Green Hill Zone. What about Sonic 1 on the Game Gear and Master System? So that even counts as an extra one, although those were supposed to be two counterparts to each other, so I guess that doesn't count as an extra version, but you get my point. Let's give Green Hill Zone the retirement it deserves. Really, we should stick to all new levels for Sonic games, but if we're going to bring back old levels, maybe next time let's do Emerald Hill as our, I guess, return to old levels first level, if we're going to do that. Alright, rant over. Sorry I haven't made a video in a long time. Hopefully this one will be enough to tide everyone over. Anyways, y'all peace out, and have a good one.